Politician. Can you make a right decision?
House Bill 321, House Draft 1. Representative Ing.
In strong support.
In strong support, please proceed.
So this bill will encourage the youth to participate in the civil process. During election season, some very excited young people came up to me. They say they never voted before, but they wanted to participate this year. The exact words was, "Brother, I never voted before, but I like vote for you." And I regrettably had to tell them that it was too late to register. A fundamental problem in youth voter turnout is that people between the ages of 18 and 25 only had 1 or 2 election cycles to contemplate registering. So by the time campaign issues statements are clear and the potential voter has made up his or her mind, it's too late. However, policy made by today's elected officials will affect these young people just as much, if not more, than other voters throughout the course of their lifetime. And this measure will begin to address that problem. Hawaii indeed has turned out with the lowest numbers out of every state in our union, with below 49%, according to a 2012 study from George Mason University. This measure is expected to increase overall turnout by nearly 6% and turnout among 18 to 25-year-olds by a full 9%. And that's according to a study by Demos, a national resource and policy organization. So, you know, we can make a lot of arguments of how this measure may hold us more accountable. I think that's a good thing. If there's problems in the elections, Office of Elections or county clerks, then yes, they should be ironed out, and this should open discussions, and you know, maybe we need to support them more. Maybe there needs to be some changes in personnel, perhaps. But to vote down a measure that will help mitigate these dismal statistics of being the worst voting turnout in the nation, I can't imagine myself voting against any measure that will help increase those numbers, especially a measure that was recommended by numerous national organizations as a way to pull us out of this rut.
Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Kobayashi.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support.
In support, please proceed.
I'd like to commend the Prime Introducer from Kihei for bringing this matter to the floor. We have long had both silent majorities and vocal minorities. We have also had a long history in this country of voter discrimination. Right now, we have economic discrimination because certain people vote and certain people don't, according to economic lines. We also have age discrimination in voting because, again, by age, certain people vote and certain people don't vote. We should be doing everything we can to encourage voting, whether it's same-day registration or any other kind of registration, whether it's making it more convenient by mail or non-mail. I think that all of these are parts of the puzzle. There's no one thing that will solve our problem of low voter turnout, but anything that we can do would be of great help. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Hanohano.
Kanalua.
Kanalua. So ordered. Representative Cheap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in support with reservations. I agree with the young representative from Maui. There is a strong sense of voter apathy within the young people, and I think something just off the top of my head to deal with this problem. We can register at the age of 16. I know I went to a school here in Hawaii, and it really wasn't taught to me the importance to vote. And if it doesn't come from your parents, then you're not going to be taught. Luckily, my parents told me the importance of my civic duty, but I think another option is going into the schools, letting juniors in high school, tell them the importance of voting, give them a voter registration form. There are many other things that can be done. I have a few problems with registering on the day to vote, but I think it's a discussion that we need to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Fale.
Mr. Speaker, there's two things. If we really wanted to drive voter turnout...
In support or in opposition?
With reservations, in support with reservations.
Please proceed.
If you look at communities that have higher levels of education, higher levels of income, the voter turnout is drastically higher than communities with that are economically and educationally disadvantaged. If we wanted to turn that around, we need to increase income levels and increase levels of education. As you go through, if you compare the wealthier communities with the poorer communities, if you compare the better educated communities to the less educated communities, and obviously there's a correlation between income and education to begin with, there is a huge difference between the two. And I believe, and I've been deployed to the Middle East where voter turnout has been drastically higher in places like Iraq than they are here in the United States. But if we really wanted to turn voter turnout around here in the state of Hawaii, we need to increase incomes and we need to increase education. Those two things have proven, without a doubt, to increase voter participation, and I would dare say that those two things, improving upon those two things, would drastically improve voter turnout way beyond same-day registration.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Kawakami?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In support with some slight reservations, and it's just because I don't think that the voter apathy is because of a lack of opportunity. There's tremendous amounts of opportunity, and I support giving them another opportunity. But when you take a look at the voter turnout, who's not turning out? It's the guys in my age bracket. Generation X, Generation Y. I don't know if it's laziness, but it is a problem. And I think the problem stems from not having civic responsibility and duty taught in our schools. But nowadays, you take a look at the younger generation. I think all of us have been into one of the classrooms and had participated in kids voting. And nowadays, you have kids like my daughter Haley, who's 9 years old, that's the biggest political dork, that looks up to Congresswoman Gabbard more than some of the superstars that she sees on MTV. So I think it's part of addressing a bigger issue. But I think that the next generation of voters, because civic responsibility and duty is being taught in the classroom, will have a much higher voter turnout than our generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Ing, second time, followed by Representative Tokioka.
Again, in strong support.
Please proceed.
I just wanted to say that I fully agree with the last three speakers, that there are many ways to address the problem of low voting turnout, especially among the youth, and education and opportunity are factors, I agree. But the biggest factor, I think, of wanting to participate in an election is seeing policy affect your lives. And over time, when you're 40 or so, you have kids, you have a mortgage, you send your kids to college, you see all these effects of policy. When you're 18 or 20, you haven't realized that much, aside from maybe student loans. And it's when it becomes real is when you want to vote. And I think that's why we build in the excitement, and we don't really feel that sense of urgency until it's like the peak of election season, And so I do agree that there's a multifaceted issue, but in terms of policy and things that we can do right now to address this problem, 9% increase in turnout, this is the only way. There's no single policy that's going to increase education levels or income. This is the go-to way right now, and there's mail-in voting, which is another option, but these are the two options that will actually specifically address that problem. And on a side note, there is something to be said about growing up in a society where Obama is all over TV and the excitement of that hope and change message versus even my generation. That's a little bit younger than me, but even my generation, where I grew up with G.W. Bush, for example, and that's where apathy stems from too. It's the public trust in government and feeling like you're able to participate, and there's a back and forth. So every policy that I'm standing up for is to increase public trust and transparency and accountability. So in terms of consistency, strong support.
Thank you very much, Representative.
Members,
Speaker? Speaker Say.
I believe I might be the only one that was going to vote no. So for the majority floor leader, can you withdraw my no vote after listening to the young man, the representative from Kihei, and giving a very eloquent presentation of why we need voter registration on the same day of the election. The only downside I'll share with the members is what we experienced 5 years ago during the presidential caucus. How will we anticipate the turnout on that particular day and then have the problem of having chaos in our respective precincts? It is a concern because there is no one to blame but we elected officials here, because I would like to challenge all of you this evening that if this measure passes, can we appropriate some funds to the Elections Commission along with our county clerks in anticipation of a 9% increase in voter turnout on the day of the election? And that would be suffice for me in going in support with reservations at this point, but the commitment would be that next year we have an appropriation for all 4 county clerks and our Elections Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Members, Representative Har.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support with reservations.
Please proceed.
First of all, I appreciate the intent of this measure, as Hawaii has the lowest voter registration in the nation. However, my concerns are as follows. Members, I would direct your attention to the testimony of all of the county clerks from each of the counties. In particular, the Office of the County Clerk, County of Maui, expressed grave concerns. They stated that the introduction of election day voter registration will require the recruitment and training of additional personnel. In the County of Maui, the Office of the County Clerk estimates they would need to hire and train approximately 40 new staff members in order to facilitate voter registration and provide control center support. This is an additional burden on the clerk's office on top of election day procedures. Interestingly enough, Mr. Speaker, the Attorney General testified on a separate bill, House Bill 754, that it is a violation of the Hawaii State Constitution to mandate any new program without sharing in the cost. This bill does not address any appropriation for the state to share in the cost of the program. In Section 5 of the Hawaii State Constitution, it states, quote, "If any new program or increase in the level of service under an existing program shall be mandated to any of the political subdivisions by the legislature, it shall provide that the state share in the cost," unquote. This bill does not mention any additional funding from the state and therefore could be seen as a violation of the Hawaii State Constitution. Second, in order to have election day voter registration, all polling places would need to be equipped with a computer connection in order to access the statewide voter registration system. Currently, these computer connections do not exist. Third, election day voter registration would allocate additional responsibilities to the precinct official or registration clerk in that they would have to verify whether the information provided is acceptable for voter registration, according to the testimony of the Office of the County Clerk from the County of Hawaii. Usually, this responsibility is delegated to the County Elections Office. In the County Elections Office, employees have access to the proper tools and materials needed to determine that voters are properly registered prior to Election Day. Finally, it should be noted that a cast ballot cannot be retrieved. In the case that a voter registered fraudulently without proper identification or in the wrong precinct, the ballot would not be able to be canceled. For these reasons, Mr. Speaker, I stand with reservations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Takumi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Not to belabor the point, but stand in strong support, even though, unlike the representative from Kihei, I'm long past the 18 to 25-year-old demographic group. But let me tell you why this bill is important. Think about back to 1954. Well, I was alive then, you weren't. But in 1954, if you remember, that was a democratic revolution when the Democrats took control of the territorial house. And in 1962, the Democrats took control of the state Senate and also the governor's mansion. If you look at the voting turnout in those days, without any kind of absentee balloting, mail balloting, voter registration drives, same-day voter registration, we had poor people in 1954 and 1962, Mr. Speaker. The voter turnout rate and registration rate was in the mid-80s to the low 90s. So clearly, the reason why this bill is important, the reason why every effort we can do to encourage people to vote is twofold. One, people need something to vote for, first and foremost. And secondly, I would assert that people who don't vote have an equally important reason why they don't vote. The act of voting and not voting are both civic responsibilities and civic activities that unless you discern why people vote and don't vote, you'll never get to the heart of this. But this is a good first step. Thank you.
Takai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rise in support. Written comments, please.
So ordered.
Just briefly, I wanted to come in and congratulate the representative from Kihei. And it's been a while since I first got elected. I know it. But it's refreshing to see his perspective, and it just makes me wonder what would have happened if we started this 20 years ago.
Politician. Can you make a right decision for all of us?